pretty good.
You get them on Amazon. It looks sort of a log effect. It look cosy wintertime.
We're live?
Yeah.
Oh, we're live.
Well, hello, Craig. I'm
No
alive.
intro. We forgot the intro. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. There's me and Jane chatting away, thinking about what we're going to do next. Put a fire on it. So good to see you all, folks. And we're going to talk a little bit in advance about the title that I put up for the show today, which is sort of like the meaning of life, finding meaning in these kind of difficult times. And we'll have a chat about that, Jane and I. And maybe if you've got any thoughts about what we say, just as a starting off point. And then we can move on and we can take various questions like we normally do and discuss sometimes things that are going on in the world. And particularly try to keep to that theme of there you have it, the complete meaning of life. You need to know nothing more.
I bet you all thought we had a power cut and a blackout.
Sorry, we had a slight technical problem because we couldn't see the names coming up on our monitor and the hellos. Still haven't seen one yet, but we'll have to just test one to see there's one there, folks. If there's not, Matt will have to just shout them out to us, I think. Or I can look at them on. Yes, hi from York. So sorry about that little bit of a false start, folks.
One love, one life, hi from York. Not
Hi.
New York, York,
Yeah,
Craig.
York, yes. So we're going to say our hellos. We're going to talk about the meaning and purpose of existence.
Yes. Michelle says, Happy Friday, everyone.
Happy Friday to you too. Thank God it's Friday. Good evening, Craig and Jane. I'm looking forward to tonight's show, says Paul.
That's nice.
Yeah, particularly looking forward to it after that little blank bit.
Ava, good evening, Craig and Jane. Good evening, Ava. Sunny, hello, from
Sunny
Hawaii.
honey.
From Hawaii.
Hello, Sunny Honey from Hawaii.
Kay, good morning from Australia. Good morning, Kay from Australia. Ian, hello from sunny Shoreham.
Sunny, everywhere's sunny except here.
It's a
We've had
beautiful
rain.
day. Beautiful day it's been.
Hello from India.
Oh,
We got from all over the world
Let me
again.
say.
It's good to see you all, guys. So we're just saying a few hellos, allow everybody to get online, allow everybody to sort of start thinking about questions for today. And like I say, we're going to have a little chat about how we can find meaning in these troubled times and what it means, what do we mean by the meaningfulness in life, you know? And
you nearly was meaningless then, weren't you, Greg?
the problem is, you see, we'll talk about it now, I think, a little bit, shall we, Jane? I was thinking, you know, a lot of people feel that life is kind of meaningless, you know, that we're kind of living in an age nowadays where everything is externalized, you know. We have lost our connection with something. And what is it that we're losing our connection with that gives us so many people a sense of hollowness about life. That life does not seem to have purpose. It just seems to be a clockwork universe, like science tells us. And are we just conning ourselves, thinking there's some form of meaning behind and purpose behind it all? Or is it all just something that comes from nothing, dissolves back into nothing, and the whole of human existence is just a blip on the whole process of existence?
Well, everything in life has a meaning. Even a slug, a snail has a purpose.
So what do you think, Jane? Why do you think that's like that?
We're all here for learning, so we all come here to learn. Knowledge is quite a powerful thing. It can be a dangerous thing as well. The purpose of being here is to help each other and to make a better planet.
Yeah, I think meaning, the sense of meaning, is kind of the default state of human beings. If you think of people earlier years, you know, if you look at people that live in a very natural tribal sort of society, everything around them has meaning of some sort. The meaning that, you know, it also had superstitions with it as well. That, you know, if the buffalo runs in that direction, it means something. If a bird, three birds move across, it means something. There's a sort of connection with the world.
It's like the Aborigines, isn't it? When they used to listen and put the ear to the ground, they could know about the vibration, the weather, and what was coming. So they learnt to tune into natural things because it's very meaningful for them how they proceeded with their life with nature.
Yeah, that's what I say. Like,
it's like, I think meaning is a different reality state.
Well, I think it's our natural state. We naturally, I think, when we're in a natural state in the world, we kind of have a sense of meaning and purpose, and our myths and our stories back it up. But of course, we've now moved into an age where science has come along, and we've looked at the world in very different eyes, because we look at it now, well, we're taught to look at it as if everything is a clockwork universe. As I said, everything is mechanical, everything can be explained, everything can be described. And somehow, in that process, although we've gained knowledge, we've also have a sickness of soul, I think, where people are beginning to sort of think, well, is this it then? Is this it? You know, all those old myths are thrown away, and is there nothing to life? Is it just a meaningless sort of clockwork universe?
Don't you think that people become incredibly selfish? Because when we had COVID around, people were very aware of nature, aware how to help each other. It was a very scary time for people. And then when everything seemed to go back to normality, people became very selfish. Me first society, and really don't care a damn about anybody, and greed. And it's like what's happening around England at the moment, around the world. Higher food prices, problems with or utilities, what's happening. The poor pensioners only have a certain amount of money to live on. How do they eat? Do they have heating? You know, it seems really, when we look at these things, are we truly being tested? Are we in a different reality state? Is selfishness.
I think
meaning to me, Craig, meaning to me is to, we're being here for a purpose to help each other and good values, and help our children and our grandchildren, and give good values. That's meaning to me.
Yeah, I agree with you. Because I think a lot of the reasons we're losing that connection with the natural sense of meaning in life is because, like you say, selfishness separates you from everything. It makes you into a less connected person in many ways. And when the resources start running out and the wars start happening and we start getting all the troubles around us in the world, people tend to become less loving, more selfish, and more self-focused, and more grabbing, because there's less to go round. The first thing you get is you get greed and jealousy of others and all the rest of it. And many of our kind of, I think, the sicknesses of society today is that people don't share. I mean, when you had really times of great poverty, people shared. I think in tribal societies, again, when you look back to the earliest man and woman, it was a time when people had to share resources in order to survive. Altruism had to be in the world, didn't it? And I think one of the reasons people have this sense of disconnectedness is partly because we've externalized our attention. Everything we think happiness lies outside of ourselves. We think meaning can be found somewhere else. We think meaning can be found perhaps in a relationship with someone we meet, Or we might think meaning might come if we get that big job, or meaning might come if we become a great leader of mankind. All of these things are all external hopes. And really, I think where we've externalized ourselves, we've therefore watered down our attention. And really, we should be coming back to here, really, coming back to ourselves, coming back to our heart, not in a selfish sort of way, but in a way where we know that everything we need, everything we want is in the here and now, in this moment. And that's where meaning is
here and now, Craig. Is there any questions to come up?
Yeah, so with some of those thoughts in mind, Guy, let's have some of your questions, particularly if you have any thoughts about this. There's an interesting concept.
Right.
Shall I comment? You want to
comment? Meaning of life is the meaning that you choose to give it. That's perfectly true.
It is really, and I think that's very astute of you, Melanie Dietrich. It's very it's very true, isn't it? Because sometimes things you can have the same. We can look at a beautiful environment, and the kids can be with us, for example, our grandkids now, and you can say, "Oh, what a beautiful! This is expressive of the whole of universe." And wherever our attention goes, that's how we see the scene. The kids with us will probably see the ice cream van, because what we're seeing, the way we perceive the world, it's filtered through our own consciousness. So often, meaningfulness. The world can look very grey sometimes if we take a very grey attitude. If we get very depressed, I think your perceptions even start to go a bit grey. But when your heart opens up, when your happiness opens up, the world becomes a flame. It fills with light and colour.
Beautiful place.
So I think that's a very, very interesting observation, don't you think, Jane?
Very much so. Next question, please. AP, we are taught to see intellect and ignore intuition when we should do the opposite. It depends who your teacher is, I think, because most people have got their own intuition. They sense things from the solar plexus here. You can stand in front of somebody and you get a gut feeling, there's something about this person I mustn't trust. And sometimes, people are always searching, and wisdom comes as you become older, because you've had so many experiences with life and things, and it's always good learning. It's always good to have knowledge, wisdom and intuition. What do you think, Craig?
Well, I think if we become over-intellectual, we become over-rational, we become very lopsided. Mm-hmm. And I think this is, again, one of the problems that the modern people have. We've become, like you say, we've been taught to use the intellect and trust the intellect. And of course, that's brought about the modern society. I mean, it's a marvellous thing. The development of that is science and the rest of it. But you say, but we should perhaps do the other way round and just look just to the intuition. And that's perhaps where the more earlier societies were, where they were more lopsided in the other direction, where they trusted the intuition but hadn't developed the intellect. I think what we've got to somehow do is find a middle way here, isn't it? We've got to find some way where we can use the intellect and value it, and where we can use the intuition and value it. And when those kind of things come together, then we've got a whole human being. We've got a whole person that is not lopsided in one way or the other. We get too intuitive, we can get carried away with the fairies. We get too intellectual, the world can become a society of numbers and boxes with no purpose and meaning to it. And I think what you're getting there with this idea that the intellect and the intuition are kind of part of the answer, aren't they? That we've got to bring together these two sides of ourselves, and that's things like spirituality, for example, and science should not be seen as opposites, but they should be seen part of a whole. And if we can work the two things together, then I think we're making progress.
Mm-hmm. Next question, please. Right, Agility Bits is your friend. The news from Thailand is breaking my heart. I don't know what sort of meaning anyone can find in this. I hope it's the darkest hour before the dawn. Yes, it was dreadful, wasn't it? All those children. And that came from somebody else's anger and took it out on innocent children. And it was a policeman, believe it or not. And he was angry because he didn't get custody or something of a child, and he went straight back and shot his own child and his wife. I mean, can you imagine those lovely children going to school and a beautiful day, and suddenly some evil element comes and shoots them and thinks, what is the purpose and meaning of that? Well, that to me is downright evil, and that is a different vibration that somebody's taking it out on innocent children.
In some ways, the world's a perfect place, but we just mess it up, don't we? I mean, and someone like that messes it up big time. He's destroyed the lives not just of all those children,
The ones left behind.
but all the poor family, all the brothers and sisters of those children, all the friends of those children, all the mums and dads and the grandparents and the teachers and the society and all the rest of us whose attention's on it as well, thinking what an awful world this is. I mean, I think we mess it up, don't we? But I think we find meaning when we get closer to peace and harmony, and there's somebody who's done that, who is far from finding love, peace and harmony.
And he shot a pregnant teacher too.
Yeah, one woman was
because this is a
fully
year.
pregnant
This
too.
is definitely the year. What the Hindus call it, Craig. Very dark times this year, isn't it?
Well, it's centuries actually. You're talking about Kali Yuga. We will see there are dark times, I think, and I think we are living through some quite dark years actually. In the last 10 years, really, have been some quite dreadful things going on, really. I mean, I suppose in all societies, you know, all times we've had difficulties. Like we had the Cuban Missile Crisis, when at the same time as, you know, the Beatles were just beginning to sort of emerge. So we seem to get light and dark come together. And now we've got the possibility of Putin threatening nuclear war, and Biden being overheard saying that this is the worst thing we've had since the Cuban Missile Crisis, and it's as big a deal as that. So we've been living through some extraordinarily bad times, and quite often when we do get dark times like this, if you think about it, quite often in the darkest of times, some of the brightest ideas have emerged out of it. I mean, like the Renaissance came, you know, just after the sort of plague, really, didn't it? And the 60s revolution came just after the Cuban Missile Crisis, and simultaneously with Vietnam.
It's history repeating itself all the time.
Yeah,
It's like a circle. But there's good times to come. This is at the end of the world. Isn't going to happen. I can assure you.
I think we should look forward to some happier times. I think there will be happier times, and I think we need to rethink the way we think. You know, like that lady said before about the idea of, you know, intuition and rationality together.
Right. Do you want to read from
Okay,
Maria?
I'll read it. It is hard sometimes to feel happy and joyful in the darkness in the world has been going on for so long. Where there is light, there is hope. Too much darkness makes us lose hope.
There's always the light, always knocks out the darkness, right from the beginning of time. So it's like going through a dark tunnel to find the light, and it will happen.
Yeah, in fact, the light cannot shine without the darkness. I mean, even the
The yin and
darkness is
yang.
holy. Yeah, I mean, you have to have the two, you know. The concept of Shiva is often actually of darkness, because it has to reflect the light. It has to have both. And it is hard. But the thing is, it's how we focus ourselves, because this is what I say. I think we get pulled down by these things if we are continually focusing our attention on that what's outside of ourselves. I mean, the world can be burning down. The world could be being destroyed, and yet we could have the capability of remaining at ease with ourselves and at peace with ourselves despite it all. Doesn't mean we don't act in the world, and doesn't mean we don't try to help people and do work in the world. But I think internally, I think our position must always be kind of focused. And if we can remain internalized, and that doesn't mean running away from the world, that still means engaging with the world. But if we can, as I've said, like Sai Baba said, if we can have our head in the forest and our hands in society, that way we can become, I think, a better functioning human being, at ease with ourselves, and still be able to do our best within the world.
There's the God-like, Craig, in all of us.
Absolutely. I mean, we're all divine lights within ourselves.
Says, Nana, I think that illness has a meaning. Pain is telling you to stop and take notice that your body is under strain. I need you to reserve your energy to help fight the infections. Absolutely right. And we must listen more to our bodies, what our body's telling us. It's like I didn't sleep last night, and I was extremely tired, and I had 2 clients that were coming very early in the morning at 9:30. I was saying to the Spirit, please give me the energy, to deal with these people. And as I went into my spiritual room, my energy and vibration was suddenly lifted, and suddenly Spirit worked very, very hard and helped them. And then I was able to rest this afternoon to come on air this evening. So, it's very important when we're tired or when we got headaches, like Craig said, headaches or aches and pains, to be good to ourselves, because a lot of us as women, we're not feeling very well, but we've got children to see to, but we carry on, don't we? Now, you don't get men doing that, Craig, when they've got man flu. They're laying in bed, oh dear, I feel so ill. A woman will carry on, nevertheless.
I think another thing with this, I think that's a very interesting thing actually, because again, it's something that robs us of meaning, is when we always feel that we got to force things in the world. I mean, most of us are encouraged to do that in life, aren't we? We're encouraged to be very ambitious. I'm a very ambitious person, always have been, but we try, and this is where we start making mistakes, to force things. We try to force the world to be the way we want it to be, rather than learning somehow to get a sort of a balance between that attitude of achievement and also the acceptance that also has to go with this too, because I think we lose a lot with that. And I think illness often comes when there's a crisis, because it can come when there's been a psychological crisis in the person, where again it's perhaps something to do with the lack of meaning, where we've been trying to push ourselves into something and into behaving perhaps, or doing things, or circumstances being pushed upon us that break the harmony. It's dis-ease. We become no longer at ease with ourselves. And I think you're right. What we then sometimes have to do is learn to stop. And that's something we're not encouraged to do in this world. We're not encouraged to stop. And it's very, very hard to stop sometimes. It's almost like nowadays when you try to stop, your mind is reeling. And this is why I think something like regular meditation and yoga as well, because I think sometimes it's good to physically do things too, so that you get the negative energy out of your body. But I think if we can become at ease with ourselves through physical activity, which we don't do, we always sort of run away from it as if it's something we've got to do for vanity, but it's actually something we should be doing for health. And if we can do inner work on ourselves, then maybe these illnesses will not be quite as dominant in our lives.
Frank, the meaning of life is to evolve, and how to evolve is the fact we're watching this show that we are searching. And I'm glad you are, because we're here to show you the way, aren't we, Craig?
Well, we're up to a point. we might send you down a blind alley as well.
You might, I don't.
And I think that's why I think that the search is important, isn't it? And I think the meaning of life is to evolve. In what way? I think the meaning of life is to awaken, which is what evolving is. Because we were talking in the car on the way up here, Jane was saying, when I asked the doctor, where's consciousness, he was flummoxed because he can't describe where consciousness is. And that's the mysterious thing that makes it all so different, is this consciousness thing, this being aware thing. And I think that's what we're all trying to find. We know that with higher consciousness seems to come other things, such as peace, such as love, such as truth, such as meaning, which we've been talking about today. And that, in many ways, is why we're here. That's what we're seeking, that this world is just a bridge that we're passing over. But, and we're only going to be here for a short time. We know that, even though we con ourselves to make ourselves think it goes on forever. But we're only going to be here a short time, all of us. And in that time, I think it's our opportunity to seek and find higher awareness. And the very fact, like you say, that we're watching shows like this, and me and Jane watch other gurus and people teaching out there, we all learn from one another. And I think this is very heartening, really, because I think the world wants to wake up, and we're beginning. If we can do that, then all these difficult times we're going will pass away, and I feel that there's going to be a really special time, not that far ahead, where we get another awakening, where people have had enough of all this craziness that's in the world. and start saying, right, let's get back to some spiritual values. Let's be happy.
And we'll be happy to take the next question, Craig. Leslie. When things go wrong, I remind myself the world is perfect. Is it just what's that word?
My bit that is not in balance, and look to myself.
No, I always think it's a beautiful world, but it's the people in it at times.
Yeah, but she's got another point there.
Yeah.
Though.
When things, I remind myself the world is perfect. It's just my bit that is not in balance, and look to myself. I think you've got to find your own nirvana in a way, haven't you? Your own bliss.
Yeah, there was. I really like. I use the Yi Ching a lot and things. I'm quite interested in Taoism. I'm interested in just about everything under the sun, actually. But Lao Tzu, who I always pronounce his name wrong, said, "Everything is clear, only I am clouded." And in many ways, when it comes to understanding things, I think that's something like Leslie's kind of say to us there. It's like we remind ourselves that everything is clear, everything is perfect, everything is at peace. The universe has been here so long that perhaps there's no need for any form of evolution. It's all evolved already. Maybe it already is all completely perfect. And this idea of evolution is just an illusion. But everything is clear. And if we can just clear the clouds from our mind, if we can remove, as in India they would say, remove the veil of Maya, the illusion, then everything's perfect. We are already in the golden age. We're already in a perfect state. Everything is just as it should be. Everything that's happening, even the war in Ukraine, is exactly what should be happening at any particular point in time. I think that actually you can get to that point where you realise that all of it is just the play, the dance of illusion, and that what really matters is that person that's awake, that I am, that indescribable state of what you could call consciousness, or wordless to be able to explain
thyself.
Yeah.
Know thyself.
And know thyself, exactly.
Know the next question now.
That's what they said. Know thyself. Who am I?
Right, do you want to read
Answers
from
everything.
Nana?
Do you want me to read it? Okay.
Yes,
the meaning
please.
of life must equate to a person's own life path. I think that things like disabilities are there to teach lessons and to understand how it affects others around us.
It's very true, actually, isn't it? I think you need to travel down your own path. And I think, when I always see like autistic children and children with disabilities are gifts, because we learn from it. And, most children who've got disabilities, they overcome them on a certain level, especially children with autism. And their brains are wired up so different, but these might be children for the future. Do you think?
Yeah, I think Nana's getting to something else there.
Yeah, okay.
I think with this as well, to say that it's all about really our personal experience, isn't
Yes.
it? I mean, we can't. The problem is people get lazy and they start to sort of want everybody else to give them the answers, right? Give me the answers. So they turn to religion, and religion will give you the answers, and you can fill the collection plate and build all this money and all the rest of it. But really what we should be doing is we should be finding the answers for ourselves. We've got to be our own gurus, every one of us. You can't even turn to great gurus like me and Jane. You have to do it yourself, and that's what I think Nana's got right here. You've got to equate to your own personal life path. And even some people's life path might be really harsh, like a disability and something like that. But there's certain lessons in that path that you could not learn any other way. And since we pass through this life perhaps multiple times, or perhaps, life has been and life will be, whatever form, we don't know what it's really going to take. We think it's a spirit world plus reincarnation, but even that might not be fully understanding what it's about. But it goes on, and it has been. And so we get certain chances. And I think we come into this world to learn certain lessons. And we don't necessarily always have to keep coming back here. But sometimes those very tough lessons like disabilities may be very, very high for quickening a person's spirit and helping them rather than hurting them in life. That's a thought.
Vanessa, I have learnt so many lessons from my autistic son. I'm definitely a better person now. I had to change myself. I think they're quite lovely, autistic children. You get some that can hit out. You get some, they're very highly intelligent children. And as I say, their brains are wired up differently. And perhaps they've been sent really, in reality, to teach us to be better people.
Yeah, and I think there's something about autistic children too, because whether it's just being diagnosed more, or whether there's more around of people with autism. It appears to be more around, but it might just be that diagnosis is being picked up where it never was in the past. But certainly, certain forms of autism can be very, very powerful sort of ways of thinking in these ages. Like, for example, some types of autism make a person really attend to lots and lots of little detail, the tiniest little detail. And that kind of, and wanting to put things in order and things like this. And particularly high functioning autism, that can be very, very powerful. For example, of doing something really difficult like computer programming. Coding. Because when many of us would find that almost impossible to hold our attention on because it's just too abstract for us. But for some types of autism, that sort of thing can be just the ticket. It's like the perfect jigsaw puzzle, you know. And so perhaps in this age, it's something that is perhaps an evolutionary leap. You know, who's to say it's a disability? It might actually be nature experimenting to take us to a newer stage of thinking.
Credibility.
Sorry?
A credibility for someone to have that, because they're gifted. Like I say, doing different coding, and they see the world, colours different as well, don't they? And have you noticed with autistic children, they got to learn to trust. They don't trust everybody, because eye contact's very important with them too.
Yeah, because the mind's been refocused there slightly. Often if an ability, and if you get an extraordinary ability of some sort, it can often be at the expense of something else. So if you're extremely intelligent, sometimes it can make you socially awkward, because your brain is geared up for this but not geared up for that. And I think that really what we're all trying to find, like I was saying right at the beginning, is getting this balance right between the intellect and the intuition, which is a bit of an overbroad statement, because when you think about what the human psychology is like, there's so many, many different aspects. But what we're looking for is almost to express ourselves as a sort of perfect mandala, something that is in full harmony. So the whole human spirit is in balance with itself. And then I think we're in a much more likely state to really start to understand much more the meaning and purpose of life. We're not trying to over-intellectualize it. At the same time, we're not trying to over-fantasize about it. We're coming to what I think the most important thing is direct knowledge, direct realization that can come partly through meditation and the inner work that we do.
And we're here because it's all lessons while we're here. We're here for learning, and everybody's life is different. So everybody, a meaning in their life is different. Some people can feel lost if they're very low and depressed and think, what's the meaning of for me being here? Other people, I found my purpose, and that's to do nursing. Or I found my purpose doing great works of art. Or I found my purpose to go and help those less fortunate. So everything has a meaning.
And I think if you ever get stuck and you don't know what my life purpose is, start with the idea of service to others.
That's right.
Because if you, whatever form you might take it, and you think, well, if I do service to others, then my life immediately has purpose, because I'm doing something value in the world straight away, and it could be something very simple. And from that, you might find that something really grabs you to say, that's what I want to do, you know. And it might not necessarily be exactly service, but it might be something else. But I think a good starting point would be there, because sometimes people get very depressed and say, I don't know what my purpose is. Go out and do something good for others, and then you'll find your purpose in no time at all.
Shall we have a second purpose question now, Craig?
I tell you what did happen. You know, the dolphin went to see the psychiatrist. He wanted to know what his purpose in life was.
Yes, that's not very funny.
Purpose. Okay.
One love, one life. There's good and bad in all walks of life. It's always been that way. This is how we learn. That's right. Because nobody was born a murderer, were they? Because, was somebody born a very good person? Perhaps in years to come they'll check all people's DNAs and things and genetics. So we all know what is right and wrong. So hopefully you will stay on the right pathway.
Yeah, and it's kind of a strange contradiction here, really, I'm going to say, because I said earlier on that I think that when we get to the full understanding of who we are and what we are, we see that everything is already perfect, and when the veil's pulled away, everything is perfect. But meanwhile, the little I, the small me, has to come into this world which is meant to be imperfect. We have to come into the imperfect world in order to understand that perfect world. I was a great lover of the poetry of William Blake, and he always talked about the idea we have to come into the world of experience in order to rediscover our innocence, and that this life is of experience, it is of suffering, it is of struggle, it is of disappointments and despairs and pain, but it's through that we come back to that thing I was talking about before, the realization that when the veil actually goes away, you realize it's all meant to be. It's all exactly as it should be. It's perfection. It's only my resistance against it that makes me think that it's a place of suffering.
To be or not to be, Craig, that is the question.
Yeah, indeed it is. Perhaps the only one,
Right, do you want to do this?
You want me to read it?
Please.
You can only understand and feel the beauty of light in the darkness, says Mystic Rebel, which is why Krishna is born in the middle of the night as that spiritual symbolism. Yeah, and like the night of Shiva too. It's in the darkness that the light can be. The light can't stand alone without the darkness to contrast it. And of course the absolute, we talk about the divine as being light, but in a way that goes beyond light itself even. I mean, light is an expression of what the absolute is about, but it is even beyond the concept of light. It's beyond the concept of anything we can possibly conceive. It's beyond anything in this world of division, and behind this world of division is the absolute unity of existence, which is the oneness of the one light, as it were. So there's light plus darkness, and that is this reality. And then there's even beyond light, there's beyond it all, there's the absolute, and that's where our soul is. We are, as they say in Hinduism, we are Atma is Brahma and Brahma is Atma. The two are the same. This is all already the purity of all existence. And yet at the same time, it's also the division of all things. This is the strange contradiction. But that's why we can't intellectualize it. I'm thinking about it here. I'm intellectualizing it. It's got to be realized, not just thought.
Right, Frank. But surely in this earthly plane, would we not learn by struggle rather than have it easy in life? Life is a journey, isn't it? And it's good to have a little bit of suffering and struggle, and because we can have compassion and help others on our journey as well, because we're not all born with a silver spoon in our mouth, are we, Craig?
I think adversity is actually a gift, in astrology they say, oh God, Saturn's come into my sign in a bad way and is going to bring all harsh things into my life. And I remember Sharavana said to me, but Saturn is your friend. He said to me, and he's right, because when adversity comes into our life, whatever form it might be, that is actually our friend, because those are the times that our spirit is quickened, and those are the times that bring us closer to true understanding. And I think sometimes we do need those harsh times. It's like, it's the when you make the sword of truth, it has to be forged and it has to be hit and between the anvil and the hammer, and that is the only way that great strength of the sword can be made. And it's the same with us when we forge our spirit. Often it's adversity that brings us closer to knowing who we are. It's often adversity that makes us appreciate the people that we love. It's often adversity that helps us to understand that life is not all about these silly frills that we chase, but it's about something more. It makes us go onto that path of seeking meaning and purpose of life. And if we don't get that, if we get the easy life, if you meet many people that have had an easy life, they're often quite not that interesting people, because they haven't had the challenges that forge a more powerful personality.
Right. Apple. Hello, Craig and Jane. Does energy get stuck? I was in a sheltered part of a room. I walked through a lot and suddenly had a vivid memory of the people who used to sit there regularly. Do you want
me to answer it? Okay, I thought you were going to answer that one. I was going off into some vegetation state. Yes, I think energies are everywhere. Everything is energy, and in this earth plane, there are energies swirling around everywhere. And I think even in a room, there are parts of that room that feel good to sit in, and there are other parts of that room that might feel wrong to sit in, for example. Cats seem to know this, I think. Boo will always find the most comfortable spot, the warmest spot in winter and the coldest spot in summer. But also they seem to have a sort of they seem to find what looks to always be the right spot. And I think there are certain energies that flow through an environment. I mean, this is something, again, if we look to China, for example, with the ideas of feng shui, that this energy pours in through the front door of a house and can be influenced first of all by the things that are around it. So, for example, if there's a graveyard nearby, it would pull the negative energy of that into the house. And then the items it encounters when the energy pours into the house can be altered by, spiky things, and spiky plants can make the energy more dynamic, or round plants or goldfish bowls and things can absorb energy. I mean, there's a whole science of these things and the direction that these come from. And people might think, oh, that's a load of codswallop, how can that be proven? But actually, when you start to feel it, you do sometimes, if you're sensitive, you do feel in rooms that certain areas are more conducive to comfort than others. Like, this right angles and things in rooms are broken. Curves are so much more conducive of good energy. So what you're talking about there, yes, maybe the energy was stuck, and maybe if you read a little bit about feng shui, you might better put something in that corner to make it more, it might need brightening up with a plant of some sort, and or put something there, and it can change the flow of the energy through your room, and therefore also through your life, and bring good fortune, they say. I'm surprised you didn't have any thoughts on that one, Jane.
I'm just letting you talk. Right, death, not just the physical, has a meaning because it, heralds change and regrowth, both physically and spiritually. It certainly does, doesn't it? Because death, when you think about it, the meaning of death, it can frighten people, or people worry how they're going to die and what's it like. Death can come at any age. And death has different meanings. Some people, Indian people, rejoice in death because it means a rebirth or reincarnation. English people, I find Western people, don't quite understand what death means, do they?
Well, yes, they do, but I think
no, I don't think they do spiritually.
People have lost it a lot.
Not spiritually, they don't. It's nothing about going to church. It's got nothing to do with that. It's really like when you make your transition over to the spirit world and you're suddenly looking around at people that you left. To me, it's like going back home where you're meant to, where you come from. And once again, it's like people that's left behind, they find great sadness and everything. But spiritually, we're here for a reason. There's a meaning with everything in life. Everything happens for a reason. So death needn't be, for some of us, it could be, if someone's suffering, it can be a blessing in disguise that suddenly somebody's out of pain. What do you say, Craig?
Yeah, well, death is Death, you've got to look at the bigger picture,
Mm.
because death also brings with it rebirth.
Mm.
The two come together. It's like a snake that sheds its skin and a new being comes out of it, or a phoenix that rises from the ashes, from the flames, to form a new being, a more beautiful being. And I think we do have to have death is also the process of change. And of course, what we see, I don't want to be there when I die, of course not. But
you picked up from Woody Allen.
Yeah. But the thing is, we have to go through that process. And if we terrify, it's like with everything in life, the more we resist, the more we fight against things, the more frightening it becomes to us. But actually, in many respects, when death comes, we should embrace it and accept it and understand that it is just taking off a coat, or taking off one set of clothes and put on a new set. The self still continues. And in many ways, also, death is a kind thing in many ways, because when you see someone suffering at the end, and it's actually the cure. The cure is death. Death cures. It takes away the pain. And what happens next? Well, we don't see the transformation from this side. But as a medium, we know that life goes on. We prove it. And we know that life goes on, and we can even prove that life goes on. And what a boon that is, isn't it? Because we now have the knowledge, or the certain knowledge that I think comes if you really investigate mediumship properly. You see some mediums maybe, or you go to spiritualist churches and things like that where you get proof, or even theatres, although some of those are suspect, but go to that where you find a decent, good medium, and you get some real genuine personal proof of life after death. Then why should we fear death? Death is not the end, it's just a doorway to something new.
Yeah.
And I wonder if I'll still say that when I'm laid on my deathbed.
We shall see.
I hope I do.
We shall see.
Does everyone encounter the angel of death when they die? Good questions.
Well, people do see loved ones before they die that come to take them over. I've known one case where a patient who had nobody, absolutely nobody, saw an angel come into the room and looked up, and I saw like an angel made up of like 1,000 tiny little sparkly stars, and she had a big smile, and suddenly I felt her energy come out the crown chakra, and she went over beautifully. Now when people say the angel of death and that, well, I don't think them of angels of death, actually. I don't know about you, Craig.
Well, I think a lot of these end of life experiences like this are very much conditioned a lot upon
The person.
the person and your cultural background in some respects, because something comes for us. I think it's our loved ones mainly. I'm brought to mind my friend Bhupendra. When he died, he saw his guru Sathya Sai Baba stood solid in the room with him, and he was absolutely in bliss about this, because his Swami was there and he was in absolute bliss. I was not in the room, but I was talking to him by phone. The phone was going as he died. I could hear what was going on, and he was absolutely overwhelmed by this, and he was in absolute ecstasy with it. So for him, that was the absolute proof of continuation of life at the end. And I think for others, an angel could come. Why not? One of our higher guides, one of the great guides and the guiding people. They're not evil, death-like characters with the hooded, the scythe and all the rest of it. Those are symbolic things of death that cuts us all down. But what comes for us is somebody, or the spirit world. All of them come. I think most people, when they're dying, will see someone they love. They'll see their husband, or they'll see their children, even if they've gone before them, or they'll see the creditors. They'll see the creditors. Yeah, good one. Yeah, see the creditors. Yeah, that's a good one. I like that. Yeah. See the creditors.
We are creditors.
I used to work with vegetative state patients. What is the soul doing when the body is unconscious?
Well, even though somebody says in a coma or something like that, it's because they're hearing the last to go, so they would be aware of things that was happening, even like people who've had brain injuries and things like that, because the brain is a very powerful tool, like a computer, you could say. But when the soul, what's the told when the body is unconscious? Well, the soul is still remaining in the body, isn't it, until it's released and comes through the crown chakra.
I think you could say another thought is that there's perhaps 4 states of consciousness. There's our waking state of consciousness, there's our dreaming state of consciousness, there's our deep sleep unconscious state, and then there's the higher enlightened state. And if we take, for example, when we go to a deep sleep and we wake from a deep sleep, while we're in a deep sleep, we're not aware that we're in the deep sleep. But the fact that we've woken up and said, what a lovely sleep that was, I've been in that deep sleep, means that there still was an I to be conscious of it. So even in an unconscious state, the I still persists, but it persists in a different state to the other to the other 3 states of consciousness that I've described there. So in unconsciousness, in most cases, I would imagine if you're dealing with someone in a vegetative state, the I persists, and if they were to wake up and become fully conscious again, everything would suddenly be back to normal again. And maybe they've been in the dream state, and maybe they've even stepped over to the spirit world, because I mean there's some great books out there. Ebenezer something or other, it was the brain surgeon who went into a state of vegetative state and was in a coma for goodness knows how long. I don't know, it was a long period he was in a coma state, and he described all sorts of fascinating worlds that he moved into and was fully awake. And he, as a brain surgeon, understood that the brain was not capable of doing that, not when he was in an unconscious state, when he was in that state. So that it's very interesting that the brain was or something, he was experiencing something that was even more glorious than normal awakening, a normal wake state, that was seen to be beyond the brain. So perhaps in those people in the vegetative state, maybe some of them are in the unconscious state, some are in a dream state, and maybe some are in a higher state where they're somehow connected to the next life. When they wake up sometimes, because people are often resuscitated from long periods of unconsciousness, those are the times to study it. Do they remember anything? Some might not, but others come back with extraordinary things to describe.
There's been women, Craig, that's even given birth where they've been unconscious in a state and they've had to save the baby's life. So it makes you wonder, doesn't it, if they're actually perhaps coming out the body and watching what's happening, even though they're a bit unconscious, that the inner spirit comes out.
Yeah, and I think if I was caring for people like that, I would want to think, I would assume that they're awake, because then play the music and talk to them. Because I even if they're not hearing it or feeling it on the normal sort of perceptions that we would have, if they're in the spirit world and experience it, they're still going to feel your thoughts and projections. And if you are stuck in a world of constant sort of paralysis, and you can still hear, it would be nice to put something on for them, so that they can feel that they're still connected with this world, if that's the state they're in. So I'm sure these things vary from patient to patient, and it's something that I'm sure we're going to see a lot more studies being done on, and there are a lot of interesting studies out there about that vegetative state. Yeah.
Right. Is that K word? Why would I have dreams or premonitions, dreams of natural disasters as a child? I never understood why, because I can't stop it happening. Shortly after the dream, the extent footage would show on news.
Footage, yeah.
Yeah, precognition.
Well, presumably, Kay, would you've been having premonition dreams, precognition as they called it,
that's right.
And you were picking up on events that happened. But it doesn't necessarily mean that when we have disaster dreams that they're necessarily always going to play out in real world, because often, in most cases, dreams of disasters are often like dreams have lots of different levels to them. I mean, most ordinary dreams, as it were, are about dealing with our emotions and helping our system to calm down again, and help us to maintain sleep, as Freud said. But they are also they're also representations symbolically of crises that are going in a person's life. So if you dreams of plane crashes and things, are often if a person's been going through an emotional crash of some kind. Often dreams about death are not about actual deaths, but in most cases are dreams about exhaustion and feeling like you're at death's door. Symbolic dreams of the way you're feeling. They represent how you feel. But then occasionally, and it sounds like you had quite a lot, particularly as a child, dreams will also reveal things that happen in real life. And I would advise anybody that is interested in that, or interested in finding out if their dreams can do the same, because I think maybe everybody's dreams might have this capability. Keep a dream diary, write them down, and then check them out, and then date them well. And so that you can then say, look, my dream is not just hearsay and say so, it's here, written down, this happened, this date, I said it, and a month later, the exact thing happened. So that's the way to deal with those, and use them as a piece of your personal research, to give you an understanding that, life can extend, our consciousness can extend into the future, can be in the present, and can go into the past. We must be running it close to time
we've got 1 minute to go. Perhaps you can talk about the foundation, Craig.
Yeah, well, just to say to everybody, that, we're coming to the end. We didn't realise the time is shooting on like it is. But if you'd like this channel, please do follow it first of all, and click the little bell if you've never been here before, and you'll get updates all the time, and we'll see all the other things in our shows. Jane's also got her links in the description below to her channel. And we're running a foundation. This foundation ultimately is to open a spiritual centre. And last week we talked a little bit about it and how we're progressing it, and we've got people helping us now, helping us come forward to want to help us towards hopefully perhaps a lottery grant or something like that. But to keeping all this going, all this here, and all the cameras and the people that help us behind the scenes and everything, we need some funds. And in order to do that, we ask people to become a patron. So if you have a look in the description below, you can become a patron and just give us some money, just a little bit each month. Peanuts will do. We only need if every single one of you that came to this, we've got 110,000 followers now or something like that. £110,000, that would be fantastic if you gave £1 each. How much harm would that do to your budget? So it would be grateful if some of you could at least help try to support the channel and help us to keep moving this forward, so that we can eventually take it to the next stage and turn this into a full spiritual centre. And Jane and I have actually got something going in Italy at the moment that we're funding out of our own money, which might be a centre as well. But we want to do something also with the funds to build something here in the UK. But there's going to be a lot more in the future. It's all happening. It's all unfolding. That upon what you focus your attention grows in strength. So get your attention on us, guys. It'll even send us your good thoughts. That helps. But better still, if you can become a patron. And I'll be putting up some more Zoom classes next week that you can come and join me on for the Zoom. And we try to put up little extras, and you get an opportunity to interact and always get an answer to your comments every time in the patron area.
And do come on my channel, Medium Jane Hamilton Parker, because every now and again I go on there and give talks, and it's nice to connect with people. I do answer things, give replies, so please do join me from time to time. I'd be delighted to talk to you. And as Craig says, so Mr. Rothschild's out there, if you're listening, do help, and we can do great things. With our time, we give our services freely, but we can't do greater things if we haven't got the funds, can we, Craig?
But anyway, we're also very grateful for all of you that are supporting the channel just by watching it, and also by sharing it on your Facebook pages and things like that. So thank you very much. But we're going to have to say goodbye now.
And I think we ought to thank Matt as well.
And we've also got some support now in the background with Matt, who's been doing some fabulous work getting us all set up with the sound work, and we've gradually got the whole studio back functioning again, which took a little while, if you might understand. So say a few good nights, and then we'll say bye-bye.
Good night, Ava. Vera, thank you. Lovely night to everyone. Have a lovely evening. And you, Vera, lovely weekend. Thank you for an interesting discussion, Jane. Have a lovely weekend.
Yeah, thanks for all joining us, and keep coming to the show. Yeah, I feel like I want to do like the night garden one when they say good night on that. You remember that?
You are the night garden, Greg. Thank you both from Tunbridge Wells.
Tunbridge Wells. Thanks for joining us again.
And I thank you everything and been very enlightening. Lovely.
And don't forget, put some comments after the show's finished, because it's what are your views on this? What do you think the meaning and purpose of life is? Come back, have another look at the video, write a comment, and inspire others that come to the show to keep watching and to interact.
And I think, Craig, we really got to go now because time waits for no man.
Yes, okay.
So bye.
See you soon. Bye for now.